Hey guys, how we doing? Welcome once again. This is Syracuse basketball postgame, presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse athletics. And despite a rough season, many ups, several more downs, a losing season for the Orange, they close out the regular season with a win. So they got that going for them, which is nice. So the ACC Tournament beckons. Syracuse is the 14th seed. They will play the 11th seeded Florida State Seminoles. That's a 7 o'clock tip Tuesday night in Charlotte. Syracuse lost its only matchup with Florida State earlier this year, 90-74, which was one of their worst defensive efforts of the year. Tonight, Syracuse played one of its better defensive efforts of the year. Virginia certainly got in the paint more in the second half, played better offensively in the second half. Actually, Virginia won the second half, if you will, by a score of 44-41. But the final score was what mattered here. Syracuse led from start to finish, played one of their better 40-minute games of the year, certainly, and ends up beating Virginia tonight 84-70. Your final score as we get ready to spring forward here into one-and-done season. It's all one and done from here for the Orange starting Tuesday night against Florida State. So two things tonight we wanted to key on. Certainly what Syracuse did well in this game against Virginia. And then I asked our Syracuse Sports Insiders, and we're going to get to your comments coming up here, guys. How can this team make a run in Charlotte? Okay, as bad as this season has been, and John Wildhack addressed the elephant in the room, if you will, earlier this week, telling Mike Waters and Donna DeTota that Red Autry would be back for a third season, which I don't think anybody was surprised by. But the way he laid it out, that Syracuse needs to be playing, as he put it, quote, meaningful games in the month of March. That's pretty much a mandate to make the NCAA tournament next year, without flat out saying they've got to make the NCAA tournament next year to save Red Autry's job. And the portal and everything that is to come in this offseason, all the macro stuff, all the big picture stuff we have spent so much time talking about, and will continue to, certainly whenever Syracuse's season ends. If that's Tuesday night in Charlotte, if that's Wednesday night in Charlotte, whenever it shall be. There's still a little basketball ahead of this team. So I wanted to ask our Syracuse Sports Insiders, how do you see this team making a run in Charlotte? They have played a little better as of late, and they do have some elements that maybe they could make a run there. And again, what constitutes a run for a team that has not been able to put together many winning streaks this year? I guess beauty is in the eye of the beholder there. So we'll get to your comments coming up. And being a Syracuse Sports Insider means that you can text me anytime. Got a lot of great texts, as always, during the Syracuse-Virginia game tonight. But you can text me your comments, your questions, your opinions, your analysis of Syracuse sports. Just want to shoot the breeze, talk SU sports with Uncle Brent. You guys can do it anytime. I send you a group text that everybody gets pretty much every day on the latest news, updates, analysis, opinions, just things on my mind. You have been such a huge part of our Syracuse Sports podcast and our post-game shows all year long, certainly. And being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you exclusive access to this post-game show. We do not take comments from anywhere else, not from social media or anywhere. Our Syracuse Sports Insiders get their voice heard exclusively here on the pod. So we would love for you to join today. The info right there on your screen. Join subtext.com/Syracuse Sports. It's just $3.99 a month, but you can try it free for 2 weeks. Okay, for this game tonight, the thing that's really got to be said is defense. Syracuse played one of its better defensive games of the season here. They made an effort to get out on shooters. Now, this is a Virginia team that hit 11 threes in its 60-57 win over Florida State earlier this week. They were, I believe, 8-2 when they had hit a certain percentage of threes. Mike Waters had a great stat about that in his game preview here. And it's a team you could not let shoot from the outside. I think that qualifies as any team that you don't want to get on a hot streak defensively against Syracuse, but particularly this Virginia team. And it's interesting, talking to Lucas Taylor after the game, he mentioned how one of the reasons that Syracuse was better on defense in this game, and maybe it's something they can carry over, although Florida State's a different team than Virginia. We just mentioned it. Virginia bombed a bunch of threes, and that's how they beat Florida State earlier this week, right? But what Lucas Taylor said is that they put an emphasis on being aggressive, getting out on shooters. But he said that Virginia is a team that spends a lot of time in sets. It relies on its offense, not its playmakers, not its playmaking ability. That could be a source of frustration for Syracuse fans. But that Red Autry offense there is a lot of freedom in there. There's a lot of ball movement there. And when it's moving, and Syracuse tonight assisted on 20 of 31 field goals, you will certainly take that. But Virginia went 3 of 15 from three-point range. And the main reason they did is because Syracuse was on the shooters. They emphasized getting on guys, defenders. They got a lot of guys off the block. Eddie Lampkin had another terrific game for Syracuse in his last home game at the Dome. Senior night, of course, tonight at the Dome for Eddie Lampkin, Jyare Davis, Jaquan Carlos, Lucas Taylor. Kyle Cuff was out there. He's a redshirt junior, and maybe we see him back next year. Maybe we don't, but wanted to participate in that senior day ceremony tonight. Naheem McLeod also honored tonight. Eddie with 25 points and 10 rebounds. Yet another double-double for Eddie. Now, Virginia didn't really have much in the paint to stop him, but this was one of those games where Red Autry let Eddie cook. He did take him out at times for some breathers, just enough time there. Eddie ends up playing 30 minutes in this game, which is fine, right? If you can get Naheem McLeod in there for a little bit, give Eddie a breather. Not that Eddie really needs it, considering his back injury has been much better and pretty much non-existent at this point. You can make an argument he should have played more than 30 minutes, but the rotations were good. The substitutions were good. Lucas Taylor's hot. He leaves him in the game this time. Lucas had a number of key shots for this team in this game. It's frustrating. It's a little too late that it came in the last game of the year. But now the question is, can they carry it over into the ACC tournament? Can they carry it over into Charlotte and at least have a strong showing there? This team is not going to win 4 or 5 games in Charlotte. Man, if I'm wrong about that, I'll be glad to be wrong about that, because that would be a heck of a story, right? NC State did it last year. Can Syracuse do it this year? I don't think they have quite the personnel, the defensive acumen. They haven't put together a long winning streak all year. Why would they do it in Charlotte? Look, it's postseason. It's weird. How seriously do some teams take the tournament than others? You start winning games, you build momentum. That's sports. Weird stuff happens, okay? So you got to leave that window open that it can. I just don't think this team is built to win 3, 4, 5 in a row in Charlotte or anywhere for that matter, but a good showing, winning a couple games and ending with some momentum, right? What have you done for me lately? No one is excusing what kind of season this was. It was one of the worst seasons Syracuse has had in recent memory. They're going to finish with a losing record. That's just the second time it's happened since 1970. That's on Autry, and I'm going to play a clip from Autry coming up here where I appreciate how honest he was in a question that I asked about how the team kind of stayed the course through a rough season this year. But Syracuse, time after time this year, has been bad on defense. It has been the number one thing that has kept them from winning more games this year. They were great on defense tonight, so you got to give credit where it's due. And it was because of the way they played defense. It wasn't because Virginia missed a lot of bad shots or Syracuse wasn't getting out on and they got lucky because they weren't getting out on the shooters. No, Syracuse made that happen, not only on the three-point line, but I mentioned in the paint. They were getting shooters off of their spots. They were clamping down on shooters. There just wasn't a lot of good quality shots for Virginia. Now, again, in the second half, it does need to be noted here. Syracuse had a significant points in the paint advantage, mostly from Eddie Lampkin, but Jyare Davis getting in there as well, who had 15 points in this game tonight, as did Lucas Taylor to lead the way for Syracuse. Those are your 3 guys in double figures. So that needs to be noted, certainly. But Virginia ends up, and points in the paint ended up being tied at 42. Virginia was a lot better offensively, and they had to be. They had to be aggressive. Virginia's a team that has one of the slower paces in college basketball. They're like 360th in the country when it comes to pace of play. Well, when you're down 14, 16, 18 points, you don't have a choice but to pick up the pace, take quicker shots, and as Lucas Taylor said, it's pretty enlightening what he said about their defensive approach to this team. They rely so much on a system and on offense. Well, they couldn't do that. They had to improvise, and when you're not getting threes, it all just kind of falls in on you. And Syracuse kept it simple. Eddie was open all night in the paint. 25 and, was it 10 he ended up with? Yeah, 25 and 10. Another double-double. Jyare Davis had a couple of threes. I'll grant him that, but good in the paint. Lucas Taylor was 3 of 5 from three-point range, but the quality shots that he hit, in the timing of the shots that Lucas had, he had a one-corner shot that he looked like Steph Curry falling out of bounds. Not that Virginia ever got really close, but let's face it, This is a Syracuse team that's blown a lot of double-digit leads, not only this season, but in the last few weeks, okay? They're up by 17, 13. They get to double figures, and it's almost like I joked around and I sent it to our Syracuse Sports Insiders. I'm like, oh, well, now Virginia's got them right where they want them. Syracuse is up by double digits. But that never waned tonight. They kept pace, even when Virginia started going in the paint. Virginia ran a 1-3-1 defense in the second half that did throw the offense off a tilt, but when you have a 14, 16, 18-point lead, you need to protect it. You need to use that to your advantage. And for the first time, really all year, Syracuse did that. There were no nail-biting moments in this second half, and Virginia did make a little bit of a run, but every time they did, boom, Lucas Taylor hits a shot. Eddie would score again inside. Red would actually make a good sub, right? Carlos hit a key three when maybe it felt like Virginia was going to get things going here, but if you're going to overcome a big deficit like that, you got to be able to shoot from three-point range, and Virginia absolutely could not do that tonight. So that's tonight. Tonight is great defense, a team that did not let up on defense or kind of in the spirit of how they play, and I'm going to play that clip from Red Autry that speaks to that here in just a moment. Eddie was terrific inside. Jyare Davis was great inside. And I'll tell you what, I'll give credit where it's due. J.J. Starling let the game come to him tonight. Now, you want to see J.J. Starling have better numbers than 7 points. But here's the difference between this game and the last game. Last game, he goes 3 of 17, 1 of 10 from three-point range. And what we were talking about after that game was you can't shoot that much. If you're not on, if you don't have it, you can't go into Mamba mode. You can't go into hero mode and take over a game when you don't have it. JJ knew that and played a much smarter game tonight. So, yeah, only 7 points, but he had 5 assists. He distributed well. He knew when to give up the ball. He didn't force it. He didn't drive in the paint and hope for something to happen. When he did, went 5 of 6 at the free throw line, leading Syracuse in that department. They went 16 of 19 overall in this game, right? So JJ didn't give the game away. Frankly, that has been one of the reasons that Syracuse has lost games down the stretch is JJ is either turning the ball over, he's been bad defensively, he was great defensively tonight, and has just made it easier for teams to build these comebacks. He did not do that tonight. That's what a leader does. Being a leader, a go-to guy, whatever description you want to put on it, means knowing when to lay off the gas pedal and let others cook. And JJ did that tonight. Now, again, you're not going to win a couple games in Charlotte without JJ Starling playing well and scoring. That's not the JJ you want to see consistently, but that's the JJ that they needed tonight. And he recognized that, and I think you got to give credit where it's due on that front. So we'll get to our comments from our Syracuse Sports Insiders on how this team can make a run in Charlotte. And again, what do you define a run? 2 wins, 3 wins? I think 3 wins would define a run. They win Tuesday, they win Wednesday, and now everybody's buzzing. Whoa, what's going on with Syracuse? Look at this. This team was terrible all year. They go into Thursday with the big boys, teams that had double buys and have been sitting around for a couple days waiting to play. And when you're down the road that far in a tournament, defense kind of goes out the window in a way. Now, if you're a team that's played 2 games playing a team with a double bye, certainly you want to play good defense and not let a rested team get you. And I'll tell you what, little things matter. So today, Cal Notre Dame goes to 4 overtimes, and Notre Dame beats Cal, which puts Syracuse in the 7 o'clock Tuesday night game. Those few hours matter, right? Because you turn around quick, you're going to practice on Sunday, you're going to travel on Monday, you got to play on Tuesday. Now, you got to play at 2 o'clock on Tuesday versus 7 o'clock. That makes a big difference. 7 o'clock is a normal time. It's prime time. And you'll stay pretty much on that same note going forward, right? So I think that was a big, we'll see if they take advantage of it, right? But getting that 7 o'clock game as opposed to those kind of early afternoon games, there's no energy in the building. And the quick turn, not that Charlotte's a big travel destination for Syracuse, right? It's an easy trip, but a lot of little things add up in that department. So thank you to Notre Dame for giving Syracuse the 7 o'clock slot for some. Some would probably prefer to maybe take a long lunch and watch the 2 o'clock games like we used to do back in the day when you had the cool teacher and they'd roll in the TV when Syracuse was on it was playing during the Big East tournament, right? And then when you get a little older, you can start taking those long lunches. And come on, when Syracuse is in the Big East tournament back in the day, the whole town shut down. If there's a noon game, a 2 o'clock, nobody's working, right? We're all watching the game. So we won't get a chance to do that, at least on Tuesday, because it's a 7 o'clock game. So we'll see if they take advantage of that. I did want to play this clip from Red Autry. And it's been a week for Red. You had the interviews that John Wildhack did, including with our own Donna DeTota and Mike Waters. And look, Wildhack put it out there, amongst other things. And he was complimentary of some of the things that Autry has done and kind of give him that dreaded vote of confidence. But he laid it on the line, right? We have to play meaningful games in March. I mean, I wish Wildhack would just draw the line and say, we got to make the tournament. The expectation here, the orange standard, if you will, is to make the NCAA tournament. That's what this team has to do next year. And he mentioned how they've got to do well in the portal and all these things that we've been building to this conversation here at the end of the year, and we'll continue to track here. The portal opens 2 weeks from Selection Sunday. Now, players can certainly put their name in the portal whenever they want, when their season ends. So we're going to start to see some of the candidates, if you will, that will be there for Syracuse to track in the portal, and all that will come whenever this season ends, if that's Tuesday or whenever it is in Charlotte. Because whenever their season ends in Charlotte, their season's over, okay? Short of a miracle where they win the thing and get the automatic bid, their season's done. They're not going to an NIT. They're not going to the NCAA tournament, which would be 4 consecutive years. So it doesn't change any of that and what has to build on next year. You could tell it was wearing on Red a little bit. What was being said, what was being talked about, the season itself, and I thought he was pretty honest in his assessment here. So I asked Autry at the end of the press conference how he's always come back to, and said it again tonight, how this team never gave up. They always gave him everything that they had. They didn't wilt under the pressure and didn't wilt under a season collapsing around him. And I got to be honest with you guys. I'm normally not a guy that compliments that teams play hard. Like, you're supposed to play hard. It's baked in the cake. If you want to go out there, no matter what the record is, and demonstrate what kind of person and player you are, you play hard, right? But there's a difference between just playing hard in terms of effort and just the way, look, I never got a sense that this team quit, that this team laid down, that there were problems with the team, that nobody wants to lose, nobody wants this record that they have. But they played out the season. And we'll see if that carries over into Charlotte in the ACC tournament and you give somewhat of a reprieve from a bad season, which, again, nobody's excusing, right? I'm not somebody who usually compliments that, but that's hard to do, to keep a team together, to give them the speeches, and for them to take it upon themselves to go out there and play the way the game needs to be played. They just weren't good enough. They just weren't talented enough. They just were not a well-coached team for the most part. They were tonight. I'll give credit where it's due, right? Kind of a little too late in a lot of ways. But you can easily see fissures and issues and players pointing at each other. And like, you could, a 20-win team a year ago had some chemistry issues. They had to kick Benny Williams off the team because of that, and some things that just went awry, and that team won 20 games, right? This year, everybody got along better, but they just didn't win enough games, primarily because of how bad they were defensively and things we've talked about all year. So I asked Red about that. Here's what he said.
I think it's a testament to them. I think it's a testament to our staff. Again, when you have a season, that you don't get the results that you want, to be able to get up and come into work every day, and tune everything out, and the people that come to our practices, that shouldn't have practices, you wouldn't tell them, but you would think we were 25-0. And I just thank my staff and our guys. They just, they kept it going, and we kept fighting, and not once did I think that they packed it in, and I know as a coaching staff, we didn't, through everything. I think that we've learned a lot this year, for those guys, this experience here, I remind them, this is how the world is, right? And this is what when hard times come, you can't lay down. You got to keep going, you got to keep fighting, and they did that. You know, so again, this wasn't the season that we wanted record-wise. You know, not for me, not for any of these guys here, not for our fans, not for anybody here that follows us. We understand that. You know, but in that, when you do have bad times, right? You want to see people fight. You want to see people not give in and not give up. If there's any credit that I would ask any of you guys to do this, is that that's what this team did this year. Through the difficult times, through the hard times, you know, they never stopped. They kept fighting. Again, you know, and I'm proud that they did that. Right? It's bad. To be honest with you, it could have been worse. You know, it could have been worse, and they didn't let it happen. They kept fighting, and everybody that followed, they knew they were in the game. It was just, obviously we didn't close them out, but it wasn't like, we just laid down. So, again, I'm proud of my team for that. Thank you.
Pretty honest comment there. They said could have been worse, but they didn't let that happen. So, look, I'm normally somebody that doesn't hand out anything for that. Nobody's winning a trophy or anything, but I think that is a credit to them. And I'll say, being in that locker room after every home game this year, the players were there. They took their medicine. They talked win, lose, or draw. And a great locker room. Good guys to talk to. They gave you insightful answers and would sit there and, they eat a lot of crap this year after some bad losses, right? And how often can you change how you describe a way that you blew another second half lead and just some of the Groundhog Day aspects of this team? To their credit, they sat there and they took their medicine. So, for what it's worth, they did that. All right. So now we turn our attention to Charlotte. The ACC tournament starts Tuesday. Syracuse will play Florida State. So not only that matchup, which, remember, that was the first game. So this is back in January. It's been 2 months since Syracuse played Florida State. That's the game J.J. Starling came back. That's also the last game Donnie Freeman played in that injury crossover. It was one of the worst defensive efforts of the year for Syracuse in that game. They gave up 90 points and just could not stop Florida State at all. Just couldn't play defense worth a lick. Florida State's got more size, so I think it's going to be a little more difficult for Eddie Lampkin. I think that Leonard Hamilton, who remember is in his last season at Florida State, is going to key on that. He's going to throw some guys at Lampkin. I think they're going to try and get Eddie into foul trouble earlier in that game, and at the very least, they are certainly more capable of handling Eddie Lampkin in the paint. So that's one thing you got to keep in mind. Eddie has been an anchor for this team. He's been Mr. Double-Double for this team, and Syracuse really kind of relies on what he can do. So Florida State beats SMU. It was Leonard Hamilton's final home game. Malik Ewan, another guy with size, 26 points in this game. But the guy you really, and he had a huge game against Syracuse the first time around, the guy you really got to keep an eye on for Florida State, of course, I'm just pulling up the box score from tonight's game. Yeah, Jameer Watkins at 20 points tonight. Look, Watkins, he's the guy. He's just one of those players, not that I'm saying he can lead Florida State far in the tournament, but he's a take-over a game guy, which, frankly, Syracuse doesn't have. Jameer Watkins can just take over a game. And when you got Ewan adding 26 to his 20, a couple more guys with size that you can throw at Eddie Lampkin, it's going to be a much more challenging game for Syracuse than it was tonight. Now, again, one would think, logic would dictate, but I don't give the benefit of the doubt on this team for a lot of things. But you would think they're going to be better defensively in this matchup than the first one at Florida State 2 months ago. This team did not improve that much on defense until tonight. So can they carry that momentum over? Can they bank that? They've got that feeling. They end on a high note. It's good to go into the ACC tournament feeling good about yourself, right? As opposed to yet another second half collapse or giving up a double-digit lead. Here we go again. No, they kind of squashed that and put it aside. But again, two completely different teams. It is notable, though, Virginia beat Florida State earlier this week, and they did it by bombing a bunch of threes. Syracuse is not a team that can hit a bunch of threes, that can get into double digits in three-pointers that often. Look at tonight. It felt like they hit a heck of a lot more than 6, but they went 6 of 14 from three-point range. You need to be better than that from three-point land, to beat Florida State. Okay, to our insiders. Michael W. says, we looked like a basketball team tonight, but as simple and direct a compliment as you can give. Matty S. says, took 30 games, but they finally played for 40 minutes. Paul L., for the Orange to make a run, the D needs to play like they did tonight in the first half. Taylor needs to continue his hot shooting, and JJ should continue to curtail his shots. So basically, let the game come to you. Don't force it. You got to have JJ scoring more than 7 points, though. Like, JJ has been in an extended slump. JJ's not shooting well. He gets in the paint but isn't finishing there. He's certainly been bad from three-point range. He was 1 of 10 in the game prior to this. And he's getting open. But I think his confidence is down there. We've seen JJ take over games, be 20, 24, 28-point type games. He's capable of that, right? He might have to match Watkins and go toe-to-toe in that game. We know it's in JJ. We know that he can play better than he has as of late, and they're going to need him to if they're going to win a game or two in Charlotte for sure. Eddie P., 3 keys for a tournament run. Defense for 40 minutes. Fast start at the beginning of each half. And, of course, hashtag free throws matter. Robbie M., Lampkin Davis stay and work the inside game. Taylor stays hot, but cut back on turnovers and hopefully opponents miss a bunch of threes. Yeah, Virginia 3 of 15 tonight. You can't count on that. And that's a key point about turnovers. Syracuse rarely has more turnovers than their opponent and wins. They did tonight. They had 15 turnovers, and Virginia got 17 points off those turnovers. So you have 15 turnovers against Florida. I'm just speaking theoretically here. 15 turnovers, and they get 24 points off those turnovers, or more than what Virginia got. It can swing things the other way. Jack W., can Eddie dominate Florida State's huge front line? That is a big storyline in that game. He had 4 points and 5 rebounds in the first matchup, but he's a totally different player now that he's healthy. All good points there. Gary D says, I was completely surprised that Autry actually substituted well tonight. When JJ got into Mamba mode, when Syracuse was up double digits, he sat him down. Put Kyle Cuff in for him at that point. With Lucas playing well, he actually left him in the game. He substituted Eddie for short breathers. He followed the scouting report and had Eddie and Jyare pound the paint. Unfortunately, it took for the last game for all of this to happen. Jake M., we need more from JJ on Tuesday for sure. Not a great game from JJ, but a 14-point win. Hey, we're Cuse fans. We got to find something to complain about. From Neil, who says, keep moving the ball. Take advantage of Lampkin's moxie. He can score or pass at will. Thomas T., my biggest takeaway is in the last 2 weeks. They have shown a marked improvement. Who knows what next week will bring? Rock and Ron, my guy. Hopefully, they keep the crisp passing and the strong driving to the basket and finish strong and drop off to Lampkin if need be. So, look, a lot of you guys are going back to Lampkin, and that is certainly the case. Florida State's got a huge front line. Not going to be as easy. I mean, he's battled with some big men in this league, don't get me wrong, but Virginia just, they didn't have anybody that could get in his way tonight. By the way, Virginia had won 6 in a row. So Syracuse snaps that streak, and Virginia had won 10 of the last 11 against Syracuse. So they kind of reset that bar. Bruce K. says it's always been the defense, hasn't it? Also, what constitutes a run for this team? Since starting 3-0, this team has won 2 in a row once, right? I think that's actually Bryce, not Bruce. My bad. But he makes a good point. This team has not had its fair share of winning streaks this year. So the timing on that would certainly be very timely if they can go on a run when it matters the most in the ACC tournament. From Brian C., who says to make a run, they got to play defense as well or better than they did in this game and continue to pound the ball inside. And if they take away Lampkin, you got to hit your threes. From Seth, who says we could win 2 in Charlotte or none just as easily. I don't see Syracuse winning more than 2 if they get by Florida State and SMU. I'm glad this tough season is almost over, and I'm looking forward to a complete 180 next season. And I don't remember who this was, so sorry that I'm not giving you credit for it, but I like this comment. Looking at the standings, it's so... Oh, this is from Sean. Shawnee M. Looking at the standings, so disappointing to not be the 9 seed going into the tournament. This team left a lot on the bone, but the key is 40 minutes of effort and get the ball to Eddie. So, yeah, Eddie Lampkin is a key. You got to hit more threes than you did tonight overall. You certainly got to play better defense. You do those three things, you got a shot. You certainly have a shot to beat Florida State, but they did not defend Florida State at all in that first game. So you go back, you watch that film, and like, why do we not defend this team? Can they take some of the principles they had tonight? Because it's not the same team. As Lucas Taylor pointed out, Virginia is very in a box, very in their offense. They've got to run it the way they need to. Florida State doesn't play like that. And they've got more athletes, and they've got a huge front line, right? But Florida State's also an 11 seed. They're vulnerable. This is not a team that's been sitting around for a day or two with a bye. There's a reason they're an 11 seed. They lost to Virginia earlier this week. You can get them. So that's Tuesday night. The ACC Tournament. Syracuse, Florida State, 7 o'clock tip. We will be with you here on Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health after that matchup, and I'll be with you throughout the ACC Tournament run, however long it shall be. So we will be here Tuesday night and throughout the ACC Tournament as long as Syracuse is there doing postgame shows after the game. We have a pod coming for you on Monday as well, which looks at two things. I'm going to flip the script a little bit. And I'm going to go over, I don't know if it's going to be 4 or 5. I'm going to pick a few reasons, few key reasons why Adrian Autry is the guy for Syracuse basketball. Why next year could work. What could happen to kind of turn the ship around the direction it needs to be going. One winning season, one losing season. How does year 3 define Autry as the guy? I think it's fair to look at the other side. We've certainly expressed our opinions of why he's not, and the challenges in front of him and the things that are preventing him from being the guy. Let's look at the other way. And I asked our Syracuse Sports Insiders that question. You guys had some amazing answers to that. So not only will that be on the pod Monday, you know who else is going to be on the pod that's going to come out on Monday? Oh, should I tell you? I'll tell you. I'll let you in here. You guys stayed up late to watch the show tonight. It's well past midnight on the East Coast, so I'll give you a little nugget. You know who's going to join us Monday? Our old friend Emily Liker. Emily was at the Combine, talked to some Syracuse guys, watched them work out, heard the buzz about Kyle McCord and LaQuinn Allen and Fidel Diggs and Elijah Clark and all the guys that were at the Combine, right? Plus what's kind of coming here in pro day season and just the NFL buzz on those Syracuse guys. And it was good to catch up with Emily about life at the Combine, life covering the National Football League. And we had a good, meaty, fun football conversation that I think you guys will enjoy. And it's always good to catch up with our old friend Emily Liker, right? So that's the Monday pod coming your way. Cool local music on that one too. We don't do local music on the live pods. It's a little more, it's, I don't want to get into it. It's kind of a rights issue deal. We can't do it live, but when we do our pods, I love to feature local music, not just local music, original music. So if you have original music that you would like featured on Syracuse Sports, if you know of someone who has a great band or they're a great artist or whatever the case, if it's you, maybe it's you and you want your music put on a platform like this, we are happy to feature it. So local and original music is a big part of our Syracuse Sports podcast. All the details are in the show notes on how you can get in touch with me, email me, send me a text, Syracuse Sports Insiders. Let me know, hey, I'm a musician. I've got some tunes. And all we basically need is for you to just kind of sign off on letting us play your music. And voila, it's a part of the show. So we've been doing that on Syracuse Sports, and we'll continue to do that on Syracuse Sports. Did I miss anything? I think that's everything. That's a lot. We got a lot coming. We got Monday's pod. We got all the live pods next week. You know, Syracuse football spring practice is going to start pretty soon. Lacrosse is humming. Big one against Johns Hopkins on Sunday. So we'll be recapping all that on the pods, but of course on the Syracuse Sports Insider text line as well. So please join today. Text me anytime and become a part of our growing Syracuse Sports Insider community who get to participate in the pods, ask great questions, talk SU Sports anytime. Being a Syracuse Sports Insider means you have direct text message access to me. We would love for you to join today. All the info right there on your screen. Here it is. Right there. See it? Join subtext.com/Syracuse Sports. You can also text the word orange to 315-847-3895. Try it free for 2 weeks, and then it's just $3.99 a month after that. All right, friends. So as mentioned, a lot coming here, but our next live pod will be Tuesday night. We know that. We don't know how many we'll be doing from the ACC tournament, but we know we'll be there Tuesday night after Syracuse takes on Florida State. So we will talk then. Look for the pod to come your way with Emily and the reasons that we think Adrian Autry could work as Syracuse basketball coach long term. So what you have to do there, friends, I know I'm asking a lot here, but you got to hit that follow button. You got to hit that subscribe button. Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you prefer to either listen to your podcast or watch your podcast, make sure you subscribe to Syracuse Sports when a new episode pops up. Our insiders certainly know when a new episode pops up, but when you subscribe, you can listen and watch on your time on demand when you want. All right? The regular season's over. It's March. This is March, as John Rothstein likes to say. How far can Syracuse go in the ACC tournament? We will start to answer that question Tuesday night. That's when we'll talk again here on the live pod. Thanks for hanging tonight, though. And thanks for hanging all season long, by the way, as we've reached the end of the regular season. Greatly appreciate your time and your loyalty and your comments and just seeking out the pod one way or the other, either when we're live or when you want to listen and when you want to watch on demand. So thanks for hanging with us through a tough season, by the way. I really appreciate you guys being here, even though sometimes the last thing you probably wanted to do was hear more about how Syracuse basketball lost a game or a miserable season. But you hung in there and greatly appreciated. But we'll see how much longer this thing will go in Charlotte starting Tuesday night. We'll talk to you then after the Orange take on Florida State. But thanks for hanging with us tonight. This has been Syracuse Basketball Postgame presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. The Orange end the regular season with an 84-70 win over Virginia.